let's check in on the vice presidential candidacy of J.D. Vance. As we've been covering since the moment he was selected, his candidacy has been spiraling, and I think Trump stuck with him. People have been saying, is he going to drop J.D. Vance off the ticket and switch him out? I don't think that'll happen, but I do think Trump is regretting having J.D. Vance on the ticket. I'll show you again in this segment in a little bit just how unpopular he is compared to other vice presidential running mates, and then we'll get to his former roommate who has revealed text messages and different things about J.D. Vance that reveal how much of a fraud he is, how much of a part he's playing, and how disingenuous the ideas are that he's expressing. So we'll get to that as well. This is the first interview that we've covered of this roommate, a former roommate of J.D. Vance's. But first, ASIN put together on X a clip that's just two clips spliced together that are the embodiment of this two-faced characteristic with J.D. Vance. Here it is.
And we know the truth, by the way, that our police are heroes and we're always going to have their back. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote to back the blue.
Vance writes, quote, "I hate the police. Given the number of negative experiences I've had in the past few years, I can't imagine what a black guy goes through."
Oof. Oof. One more time. That's just a brutal, humiliating compilation.
And we know the truth, by the way, that our police are heroes and we're always going to have their back. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote to back the blue.
Vance writes, quote, "I hate the police. Given the number of negative experiences I've had in the past few years, I can't imagine what a black guy goes through."
Yeah, so that came from communications he had back before he was this latest version of J.D. Vance. But it's important to remember that as we talked about, I'm trying to remember when we recently went over these numbers, but it was Trump who proposed cuts to federal investments in law enforcement. It's been the Biden administration that has overseen, the Biden-Harris administration, the largest federal investment in law enforcement, public safety, and violence reduction during their time in office. It's these Trump supporters who excuse the behavior of those who attacked police officers on January 6th. It's Trump supporters who are siding with the guy who said at that National Association of Black Journalists convention, he said, I absolutely would pardon rioters who assaulted police officers. To be clear, not some of them. We watched the clip already. And actually, just for the sake of clarity, we have to get this. Trump pardon. We have to cover this exact moment. Here it is.
I would love to ask you about January 6th. You called yourself the candidate of law and order. Yeah. When Time Magazine asked you if you would consider pardoning all the rioters, you said, yes, absolutely. Sure. You called them patriots. 140 police officers were assaulted that day. Their injuries included broken bones. At least one officer lost an eye. One had 2 cracked ribs, 2 smashed spinal discs. Another had a stroke. Were the people who assaulted those 140 officers, including those I just mentioned, patriots who deserve pardons?
Well, let me bring it back to modern day, like about 5 days ago.
And then he rambles about his whataboutisms, and let's see if I guess the correct part here.
But sir, my question is on those.
What's going to happen to
my
the
question
people
is
that
on
tried
those
to
rioters who assaulted officers.
You have to
would you pardon
what's
those
going to
people?
happen? Oh, absolutely, I would.
You
if
would
they're
pardon
innocent,
those?
If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just
Right. They were convicted. Would you pardon those who assaulted police officers? Absolutely, I would, if they're innocent. But they were convicted. Who cares? So Trump supporters are the ones excusing that behavior, supporting Trump, the convicted felon. So don't give me this, you're the party of law and order. And us thinking that when wrongs are done by police officers, they should be held accountable. And Trump is arguing on behalf of complete criminal immunity for police officers for some reason. That doesn't mean you're the party of law and order. It just means you're crazy, okay? That's just a bad policy stance. But I think the policies I mentioned before about properly investing in and wanting properly trained, qualified police officers who can also then be held accountable if they act in incorrect and harmful ways. And also not wanting a criminal as your candidate. And then, of course, wanting to regulate guns so that so many weapons of war aren't on the streets killing citizens, average citizens, and police officers. But with that being said, I saw someone say, this is the Kamala Harris HQ account before getting to this former roommate, about J.D. Vance's campaign. This is the state of his campaign right here.
Now, I brought you all here for a big announcement, and I guess it's time that I actually get on to making the announcement part. What is it? Well,
the sign falling off of the lectern. And then at his rally in Nevada, very interestingly, the microphone went out and something tickled me, okay? Gave me a giggle about how he handled it.
Now, I have seen the consequences.
So now the microphone's out, and just watch as he sort of figures this out. I don't know why people think that with a microphone, if you just smack it enough, then it'll come back on. You know, my producer Jaden and I both have a background in some tech-related things, and worked with AV, you know. One of the things we learned was a microphone that turned off is not going to come back on just because you start smacking it as hard as you can. And I think, did he blow in it too? What is blowing in a microphone going to do? That's very strange. I think people think of it like a pin. You know how, that's why I'm holding this pin. I was going to make this point. You know how if you shake a pin, sometimes you can get ink to go to the front of it and then it'll start working again? That's not how a mic works. The more you shake or smack a mic won't make it turn back on. Then at the same rally, he did say this.
Now, I would call her up here to come and speak, that then I think I'd have to sleep on the couch tonight, so I'll leave her alone.
You know, a lot of reactions to that clip. Obviously, people pointing out that maybe J.D. Vance should just, for the time being, keep the word couch out of his mouth because of the rumors about what he does or doesn't do to couches. We'll say. If you're watching this and you're thinking, this guy's not bad, and you want to support the work that we do, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. Easy, free, but makes a huge difference. Back to the video. Now, last thing before the roommate, you do have this reporting about his unpopularity.
Does he see?
I mean, it's the worst vice presidential pick of my lifetime. And, you know, if we look at the net favorability ratings, you know, we did this segment last week, which basically said he was the first one that had a net negative favorability rating coming out of his party's convention. And what we see is, according to the ABC News Ipsos poll, it's only gotten worse. It's only gotten worse. It's gone from -6 points to now -15 points. Mark my words, this is the worst vice presidential pick probably since 1972 when George McGovern chose Thomas Eagleton as his VP pick. He got replaced. I don't think Vance is going to get replaced, but that's what we're talking about here.
Hey guys,
in no planet did I ever think we'd be talking about VP nominees.
This is brutal. Look at that. -15 point net favorable rating, according to ABC News Ipsos. In just 1 week, it dropped by 9 points. Wow. That is just brutal. Brutal stuff there for JD, or JP Mandela, as Trump called him. And then you have a former Yale classmate and friend. I keep saying roommate. I think they were roommates at some point, but now I'm confused because they're not labeling him as that. But at least a former Yale classmate, Sophia Nelson. And Sophia Nelson is actually a trans woman. She is the one who revealed that J.D. Vance, in their friendship, had very different stances toward trans people, such as herself. Much more supportive until he became, at least in performance, MAGA.
Can you share with us how you ended the friendship with him?
I mean, I never explicitly said we're not friends anymore. And I want to be clear, I still care about JD and Usha and their family. You know, deep down, part of me is hopeful that he'll snap out of it or something. I don't know. But that was incredibly hurtful, and I communicated that to him. I communicated that I was disappointed, that I was hurt, and that I was scared, because I remember what it's like to be a kid and think there's something wrong with me, and it's terribly scary. And I thought, I'm never going to be able to be my authentic self because it won't be safe, I won't be accepted, I won't be able to get a job. And I tried to explain that to him. You know, I told him what I went through as a child in response to his public support of criminalizing access to gender-affirming care. And he was very dismissive. And again, the tone that I had, you know, been the basis of our friendship across political differences had completely shifted. He had gone from a compassionate, thoughtful, kind person to mimicking Donald Trump's derisive cruelty. And, you know, I have many family members and friends who are independents, who are Republicans. But here in the Rust Belt, we treat everyone with kindness. And that's just, I think, a core value. And it's a core value that J.D. Vance has turned his back on in order to amass money and power.
Can you?
Wow. And if I'm not mistaken, Sophia Nelson is the person who revealed the message from him about hating police. And there is, of course, badness associated with bad stances. Obviously, that's simple. But you can stumble your way through life, or you can stumble your way into bad, harmful views. You can be trying your best in life and end up having the wrong views that end up hurting people in ways that you weren't aware of, right? That happens. I know people in my life who are so loving in their life and support really bad politicians who are doing harmful things. But there's something uniquely gross and sinister about people like J.D. Vance, who are just playing a part, who are just so hungry for power and relevance that their own authentic stances can be sacrificed. Their own authentic principles can be sacrificed, and their own ambition to be compassionate and loving to people can be suppressed or can wither away in the interest of this ambition for power. And that's as bad as it gets when you're representing bad stances for bad reasons. I can deal with someone who has bad stances but is coming at them in good faith. But bad faith, bad stances are really, really difficult to deal with. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. If you want to get extra content daily, you can do so by clicking the join button below.